It is my enormous pleasure to introduce the Hungarian Secretary of State from the Ministry of Human Capacity, Katalin Novák, who, by the way, is on holiday with her 3 young children and has come this morning to speak to us today. So can I extend a lovely welcome to Katalin? Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much also for the invitation. It's true that we've been discussing if I can come today, if I can make it or not with Sándor for a long time, so that's why I'm not actually in the schedule, but hope you would be here even if you had known that I am coming. So I hope that so many people would be present, even if Budapest, I think, is a beautiful venue. So I just very much hope that you will also have the opportunity to just look around, visit a little bit our beautiful capital and our beautiful country, even if you don't make it to Debrecen all the way. And Sándor just said that it's so far away from here. Actually, it's like 200 kilometers. But for us Hungarians, it's a long, long distance already. I know for many of you it isn't. So thank you so much for not only the organization, not only for giving us the opportunity to be your host today and the coming days here in Budapest, but also for doing what you are doing and for concentrating on this very, very important, I wouldn't say topic, but this very important life cycle, which is about early childhood. And I was asked by Sándor to give quite a 30-minute presentation, I would say. Now I see that we are way ahead of schedule, but I will actually do my presentation about the Hungarian policies or the Hungarian governmental policies a bit, but I won't say that I will do a TED talk, but I won't be very, very professional, I would say, because you are all professionals, and I am not. I am actually a politician, let's say, so I won't talk about very specific professional insights, but I would rather say, for a governmental point of view, why we do concentrate on early childhood and also early childhood development. And I would just start with some quotes from my basic law, from the Hungarian Basic Law, because I think that, what you put in your basic law also reflects your visions. So that means that in 2011, when we had our new basic law in Hungary, we put in Article 16, actually, some sentences which I think are related to our common subject. Every child shall have the right to the protection and care necessary for his or her proper physical, mental, and moral development. Parents shall have the right to choose the upbringing to be given to their children. And that is a very, very important thing in Hungary. So many Hungarian parents actually reflect to this sentence that they have the right to choose the upbringing to be given to their children. That's their choice. Parents shall be obliged to take care of their minor children. This obligation shall include the provision of schooling for their children. And just one more sentence, which actually when you first look at it, it doesn't have much to do with our topic, but I think it does, because it's the other way around. We also put in our constitution that adult children shall be obliged to take care of their parents if they are in need. So that means that you don't only have a responsibility as a parent for your children, but you as a risen up child, as an adult, you also have a responsibility for your parents. And I will just shortly talk about this responsibility thing, because I think, Chris just said that we are living hard times in Europe. That's true. And I think that, as I look at it, I also see that sometimes responsibility is a question that sometimes we just mix a little bit. Many tend to think that responsibility would be on the first place of the state, or responsibility, or it is only the responsibility of a community to care for the children, for example. I just put 3 circles, let's say, of responsibility. The first one, and on the first place, it's the family. And I think that we have to underline that raising a child is, on the first place, the responsibility of the family, of the parents. It cannot be on the first place the responsibility of the state, of the local communities, or whosoever. It is on the first place the responsibility of the parents. So that means that the decision to have children, the responsible way of deciding on having children, it is the parents, and it should not and cannot be taken by anybody else. Of course, in specific cases, yes, but it's not the first case. The second one is the communities, and there I say civic organizations, church communities, local communities. They also have their role in being responsible for raising up children. Of course, not on the first place, but also. And then on the third place, I would say the state. Because the state has to create the frameworks, of course. We have to have the legislative background, and in the event of a crisis, we also have to intervene. But I think that's on the first place, the family, the parents, and the second place, and in parallel, the communities and also the state, which are responsible for raising up in a healthy way our children. And there I also have to just very briefly tell you some things about the Hungarian situation regarding our demographic challenges, let's say. We are in Europe, and those of you who are coming from Europe, and I also greet the ones who are in the other room, so those of you who are coming from Europe, you all know that in Europe we are facing a very, very difficult demographic situation. That means that's not the fact overall in the world, but in Europe actually this is the fact. We can also say that Europe is the continent of empty cradles. So that means that there is not a single European country where the fertility rate would be high enough to at least maintain the population. So that means that somehow young people don't want to have children, or even if they want, they won't have children, they won't have many children. This fertility rate in Europe in average is 1.6, so it's way below the 2.1, which would be enough to maintain our population. So that means that today deciding on having children in Europe, in the Western developed part of the world, that is not easy, and that is also because young people feel the responsibility of having children, I think, and many, many other reasons. I won't go into details then. We are facing this situation, and we are trying, it's for us, it is a real challenge, so we are trying to do something against, and we are trying to promote, to help the responsible way of childbearing. And the reason why we choose this is not only because this is for our future, a must, but it's also because if you look at Hungarian people, youngsters, if you ask them how many children they want to have, or if they want to have children, yes, they are very family-oriented. They want to live in marriage. They want to have children, at least 2, but at the end they won't. So what we are trying to do, and there comes the role of the state, is to give all assistance and help for youngsters to be able to fulfill their wishes, their dreams, and to be able to become responsible parents. And we have a very interesting, I think, governmental structure. For that, you have to know that our government has been elected now 3 times in a row by a 2/3 majority. So we had the chance to plan for a longer time. And I think in early childhood also is very important to be able to plan, to be able to see in the long run as well. And we had that opportunity. And we created a governmental structure where our ministry, the ministry where I'm a Minister of State for Family and Youth Affairs, it is a very unique one. I know that something like that doesn't exist anywhere in the world. That means that in our Ministry of Human Capacities, which is a weird expression in English, I know, but in this ministry, we are dealing with education, with healthcare, with social care, with family policy, with culture, and with sports. All this in one ministry. I'm not the minister for everything. I'm just the Minister of State for Family and Youth Affairs. That's the biggest one you see, of course, and it's red, so it reflects that it's, of course, for me, it's the most important, the heart of everything. But to put it serious, first, it seems maybe weird, but actually it has much to do with your topic. Because when you talk about early childhood, for example, which ministry is responsible for it? Is it the educational ministry? Is it the ministry for social care? Is it the healthcare ministry? Who and how is responsible for these issues? What we do in Hungary, we have a ministry. We have this ministry for human capacities, where you can focus on the person or the family, put them in the middle of your thinking, and not have each and every field separately, and doing their own efforts and trying to struggle and run for more and more budget and so on and so on. But we are sitting around the table with all these ministers of state and also the minister on the top, and on a daily basis are talking with each other in order to have the best measures taken in the sake of families, in the sake of children as well. So I just bring one example. We introduced in Hungary 3 years ago everyday physical education, because I completely agree with you. We also are thinking about introducing everyday singing at school, or everyday musical education at school, because it is very important that you have it. Now, we do have it in kindergarten and in nurseries, but also at school. I mean, why give it up later on? You just have to follow this path later, even after the third year. But we actually did introduce the everyday physical education. And if you talk about everyday physical education, which ministry is concerned? Is it the Ministry for Sport? Is it the Ministry for Education? Is it the Ministry for Social Care? Because it helps you in social inclusion if you do physical education every day. Is it the Ministry for Families, or which is it? So when we do such initiatives, we just sit together, think about these common issues, and try to bring in these new ideas. And physical education is something like that. And you wouldn't think that culture is so much directly related to this, but it is actually, because the way we treat our children, for example, it is also a cultural issue. So culture has actually much to do with all these fields. So that's how our ministry is composed. And just some specific things about the Hungarian, I very proudly and exaggeratingly put family policy on top, but it's actually not only family policy, but these are some measures which actually relate to families, and which are, I think, in our common topic, very important. Very shortly, first, maternity leave. In Hungary, if you are a mother, yes, I'm a mother of 3 children. I, for example, spent 6 years at home with my 3 children to be present, that was my job on the first place, and still is, to be honest. But then very actively, 24 hours a day, I was dealing with that. In Hungary, you have the possibility to do that. In the first 6 months, you get actually your former salary, to put it very simple, if you give birth to a child. And we have a parental leave of 3 years. So that means for 3 years, you can stay at home. And it is also accessible for fathers. So either the mother or the father can stay 3 years long at home with the child and take care of the child for 3 years. It doesn't mean that he or she would get the whole salary during the 3 years. I won't go into details. If you're interested, and of course we can give you any details about that. But that means that you are insured. You have the possibility to stay at home, either or to go back to work in the meantime while you are raising a child. Financial support. We of course give many financial support to families in order that they can raise their children properly. That means that we have a very important family tax benefit system. I again put it very simple. If you are in Hungary, a couple where a mother, a father, where both parents work and have 3 children at least, and both have an average income, they don't pay any personal income taxes in Hungary. So that means that you have a tax allowance in the number of your, in connection with the number of your children. The more children that you have, the more tax allowance you get. That's the idea. And many other ways of support. I won't go into details, but that was just one idea. early intervention. I will talk about that a little bit later, so I just put this here because I think it is very important. Nurseries. Sándor also mentioned the Hungarian nursery system, which I think is very developed and very important that you have the chance for it. I will also talk about it a little bit. Mandatory kindergarten. I have to underline this one because we just introduced it a couple of years ago. And that means that now in Hungary, there is a mandatory kindergarten from the age of 3. That means that if you have a child 3 years old, then you have to send him or her to the kindergarten. But if you think that it would be better, it would be in the sake of the child to stay at home even longer, then you can ask for it. I mean, it is possible that your child stays at home even longer, but that should be examined case by case and at this basis, so that it would really be the sake of the child what happens. But in Hungary, you have to know that we have we have also people who are living in underprivileged situation, in very difficult social circumstances, and where there are many children many times in the family, and where the parents don't feel the responsibility of sending their children to school or to kindergarten. So what we did, and maybe first it sounds very, very tough, but it worked actually, that we introduced the mandatory kindergarten and we linked the attendance of kindergarten and school to some family benefits. So that means that if the children don't show up, then the family doesn't get the family benefit. It's very tough, but it does work. In 1 year, the absence of these children, of course, the absence that you cannot valid, so the invalid absence of these children dropped by 50% in just 1 year. So that means that you have to give incentives, but sometimes you also have to have the sanctions, and that actually worked in Hungary. So now we have this mandatory kindergarten. That means that 98% of children in kindergarten age do attend a kindergarten. So they are in community, in a children's community. A health visitor system. It is a 100-year-old Hungarian tradition. I again put it very simple. There are different types of health visitors, but actually the idea is that once you are about to have children, you are planning to have a family, and then you have the children, there is a person who is responsible in the social sector, who is responsible for your family, for your support, and this visiting nurse would actually go and visit you in your home and give you some ideas, give you some help, and assist you in anything you need in these difficult days and difficult years, actually. There is a short start program. That means that in Hungary we have a Roma community of 700,000 people. Maybe for those of you who come from a large country, it doesn't seem to be that much. But in Hungary, that means that in a country of 10 million, 700 people means that 7% of our population are Roma, of Roma origin, gypsies. And many times they are living in difficult situation. And for them, we introduced, for example, this short start program, which means that the mother and the child, the little child, can go there in a group, and they sing together, they do activities together where you not only teach the child, but you also teach the mother how to sing these songs, how to be able to give the child the most possible. Then we have free meal for children at nurseries and in kindergartens. So that means that 80% of children get 4 times in nursery, 3 times in kindergarten, free meal. And that's also, I think, a big help for the family. Free textbooks. In the first 9 years of school, you have free textbooks provided. We have a housing subsidy system in Hungary, which I want to tell you about in details. And I also put one last thing here, which maybe, again, seems weird. We call it Women 40. That means that if there is a woman who after 40 years of employment, of work, this woman can be retired even before reaching the retirement age. And that is, I think, very important that we have grandmothers in the families. We don't talk enough about the importance of grandparents, of this generation being present in the life of children. Again, let me be personal. I had the joy and I had the chance to meet each and every day with all 4 of my grandparents when I was a child. And this is something which I bring with me all the time in my life, and this is a lifelong experience, and I think something that we have to be able to give our children. So just very shortly, we have an early childhood program. That means that we have an early childhood intervention program. That means that in early childhood intervention, we had the problem that, we had the social sector, the healthcare sector, the educational sector, everybody doing their own job, but not really being coordinated. So what the family experienced itself is that there was the family, there was the parents, and the baby is born with a given problem, with difficulties. They didn't even know really where to go, and they didn't even feel that they would be all the way by the, let's say, early childhood intervention system. So we would like to give complex support for children. You all know that if you intervene fast, then you intervene twice. I mean, that is at least twice as much useful if you intervene in time as if you didn't focus on this age. So we focus on these health visitors, which I talked about, primary care physicians, social workers, teachers, parents, and the policymakers. So we target all them with the early childhood intervention program. The method is that we have questionnaire or parental observations, questionnaire or risk factors by health visitors, guidelines for primary child health care, practical manuals for parents and professionals, guide for support on typical parenting and behavior problems and childcare. We have newsletters for parents, developing professional protocols, and we are trying to create a real pathway of the child, because that didn't exist before. And I will be very honest with you, this is very difficult. To coordinate this work, it is not easy, and we always bumped into the problem that the different sectors don't really communicate with each other, they don't give the information to each other, so that is why we are creating as a common database as well. So that's very briefly the idea. And the last thing I would just mention, that the nursery system, which Sándor also talked about, the nursery system in Hungary, that means that we have a new legislation for the nursery system. So in Hungary, if you are in a community, in a city or town or any town or in Hungary where there are at least 40 children below the age of 3, or at least 5 children whose parents ask for a nursery, then the local authority has to provide this. So it is a must for the local authority by the law to provide nursery service for these families in each and every local community in Hungary if there is this need. The legislation is flexible, so there are different types of nurseries which make it even more flexible and accessible. We have created more than 9,000 new nurseries with 15,000 new nursery places, and nursery teachers are also more and more, and they are choosing this profession because they experience that it is more and more esteemed, because they also have higher wages by 40-60%, and the better financing of the nursery system, because we experienced that you can have, no matter what regulation you have, if for the local authority it costs too much, they won't do anything. I mean, they won't have a nursery system even if they break the law. So that is why we have a better financing in Hungary. The idea is that everybody should be given the possibility to have access to nursery, and we have, I think, a very high quality nursery system in Hungary. And let me finish by saying that mentality is very important. So policies, state policies are important, of course, but also mentality, the way you look at things, the way you treat families, the way you look at children, and the way you respect those who are in a responsible way raising children. So I think very important, these small things that you also mentioned, that we have a family-oriented, a family-friendly mentality in Hungary. That's why we are working for a family-friendly country in all fields, and that's why we have this year, 2018 in Hungary, as the year of the family. That means that this year, this is our main topic, the family, and we are working that in order to have the best circumstances for the Hungarian families. So I think that the work you are doing is indeed very, very important. Thank you so much for each of you who is working on this field. I also thank for those who are in, for example, in the Hungarian civic society, are doing their great job, because we have beautiful initiatives. And I think that this conference is very, very important, that you can exchange your ideas, that you can exchange your experience. And then I would like to excuse myself, because as mentioned, I am on a family holiday. So I don't say that I'm now going to the governmental meeting, cabinet meeting, which is actually right now. It's not true. I'm going back to my family. I have somebody who will stay with you all along the conference, so that I have the information which you share with each other. But unfortunately, myself, I have to leave, because I think it's very nice if you talk about important and strong family policy, but if you don't concentrate on your own family, then it's not worth doing anything. Thank you so much.